Today, we're learning to analyze the climax of the story by noticing suspenseful part in the story. So, if you remember this anchor chart about the plot, we talked about the different parts of the plot, the different sequence of a story. Remember, the rising action is where the problem is developing, where the conflict is developing, and the climax is that turning point where the problem or conflict reaches its peak, where it is the most suspenseful because you are waiting for that problem, that conflict to be solved. I want to remind you of the story that we read, or that I read out loud to you, Not Yet a Yeti. If you haven't listened to that story, or you would like to read it on your own, you can go to Epic and read it, or you can click on the link below and listen to the story before you finish this video. So in the story, Not Yet a Yeti, I'll just remind you that George is not yet a Yeti, and he is trying to figure out why. So remember his problem, this rising action. We learn that he talks to all different people in the story, his family members, about why he's not a Yeti, and they give him all, not advice, but they tell him he will be a Yeti when he's able to do this. That continues, and he talks to his mom, and this part would be the climax, where George looked inside of his head and he finally saw it. He finally saw what he wanted to be. So when his mom is talking to him about, and she says this question, well, what do you want to be? That's when George's mind starts to change and he starts to think about what he can be rather than a Yeti. George looked back inside of his head and finally he saw it. I want to be. And we have these three dots. I can't click on them because it goes to the arrow. But after the word be, you see dot. Authors put that into their story to build suspense. It's a pause. So if I was reading the story, which I have, I would say, I want to be, and I would wait, and it would be silence. And that is something that authors do to build suspense. Then we find out what he wants to be. Again, you see those dots, a unicorn. So the author used these dots called an ellipsis to build suspense, to build that climax in the story. Your job is going to be today when you're reading to figure out what part of the story you're on. You might still be on the rising action, learning about the characters and reading about the problems developing. You might be at that turning point in your story where you're figuring out the biggest conflict. It's at its peak. It can't get any higher. Or you might be in the falling action where this has already happened and you're learning what happens next. You might even be at the resolution. The climax in the story is usually a pretty small part of the story. And by small, I don't mean not important, but I mean very short. So you might not be there. You can figure out where you are in the story. And by the end, you should know where the climax, where that biggest point, where that turning point is in your story.